Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Firefighters podcast, where we seek to develop, inspire, and motivate the world of the emergency services operator through a series of wide-ranging conversations. Now, before we go any further, just hit that rate, follow, or subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening to. It's a key performance indicator for us and helps us reach even more people. Now, here's what we've got for you today. Back in October of this year, friends of mine took part in the National BA Challenge. Now, this takes place every year at Morton-on-the Marsh Fire Service College, where teams of firefighters go head-to-head against other services practicing the discipline of breathing apparatus at carbonaceous fires at incident grounds across the Fire Service College campus. Today, we're going to be talking to the team that won this year in 2023, and we're going to be talking to them about how they did it. We're going to talk a little bit around scenarios, we're going to talk a little bit around approaches, incident command, entry control, and also we're going to be looking at what the other teams did, what's out there, what's happening across different services. We'll be talking search procedures, a little bit of international stuff, Swedish versus American versus French. We're going to talk about the way we learn, the way we were taught, talking about different sets, different approaches, but also some internal structural firefighting techniques. What did they do? How did the wares go? And just try and give you an insight into the competition itself and maybe give you some ideas around how other services are doing things. And for this particular competition, what was considered gold standard. So today on the podcast, you'll hear myself with Amy, Josh, and Matt. Also want to give a shout out to two other team members that were absent but were a massive part of the success of the team, and that's Kerry and Sam, who couldn't be with us on this call. Hope you can take a lot away from this, and thanks again for coming over and supporting the podcast. If you want to continue supporting the podcast, please make sure you rate, like, follow, subscribe, and give us some support on the platform that you're listening. As we roll to the end of 2023, if you want to see the podcast continuing for the years to come, please consider going over to our Patreon page and supporting us for just £3 a month. You can get access to all of our documents, all of our debriefs, and to every single episode on whatever platform you're listening to. You will see there is only 200 of the podcast episodes available, and we have made loads more, but they now sit in our archives, so they can be there forever for future firefighters and first responders to benefit from. So without further ado, let's get in there with Amy, Josh, and Matt, and I'll see you on the other side. What's on that wall? Has that got your name? Are you in the bedroom?
Oh, mate.
Have you got Matt on the wall behind you?
My home decor look. Yeah. It's my choice,
oh,
honestly.
For God's sake.
Yeah.
That'll get edited.
In.
Clip it. All right, fellas. This morning we might have a couple of other guests drop in and out. It's going to be a bit of controlled chaos, but we're going to be talking about all things BA. Now, obviously, this comes with the overarching context that none of us are experts, but we are plumbers. And what I mean by that is we've been working in the trenches. We do the job. We see the good, the bad, and the ugly. And you guys and girls were also part of a team that went to the National BA Challenge and won, because you're amazing. So we're going to talk about why you're so amazing and how you guys do it so well. Amy's jumped back in.
I'm back.
There she is. So we were just saying, Amy, that you guys and girls recently went to the National BA Challenge, kicked some ass, took some names, obviously did something well in some capacity or another. I'd love to first get an understanding from one of you, what was the whole National BA Challenge about, Amy? Because a lot of people have probably never seen it. They don't know what it is. How did you guys and girls first find out about it, and how was kind of the prep for it, I suppose?
So I found out about it. They sent us, one of the guys from our response, SM or GM, sent an email, global email. So it kind of popped up on my radar then. Obviously, we're involved in. We try and get involved in loads of different things. So it kind of just made sense if we could get a team together. Josh, shouted out and said, I want to put a team in. He kind of picked us to get dragged along with him, basically.
Is that because you guys are naturally weirdos that do things like the British Firefighter Challenge, and you do kind of develop a bit of a reputation for people that are up for a crack, don't you?
Yeah. I mean, it's no sort of secret, and within our service, that when you look at sort of things that people are doing, like they say, same faces doing the same things. But I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. It's just that we're all up for whatever's getting thrown our way. So yeah, it made sense for us to get involved. I'm going to be honest, I hadn't really heard about it before. Probably seen some bits and pieces on socials from other brigades. It was literally just read the website, kind of read the book that they post out when they ask you about it.
Isn't your book, do they? Because it's rough guidance on the website. They don't really specify what they're going to assess on or what the thing is.
So they send you a they send you a team sort of handbook, but that doesn't arrive. I think that arrived maybe 2 days before the competition, and it was pretty much
That's great.
pretty much just a repetition of what's on the website. It's very vague. I would be lying if I said that we went, super prepared, like months of preparation.
Yeah.
I think
hey, that's honest though, right?
We're all real busy people, and that's the way it is. We're not on the same watch. We're all on we've got different job roles. I mean, Kerry and Josh are on call out in the forest, so they've got the commitments there. So it was literally like we tried to get together, everyone, a couple of times, but Josh was on duty, so got a shout. Sam Cushion's got children and family commitments. So yeah, it was a bit of an as and when we can get together. I think I observed some wears so that Kerry and Matt could wear together because they've not worn together before. They went to training school together.
So how did you decide who were going to do the ranks and roles? I mean, give us a bit of an overarching, Matt, like what was in the handbook and how did you guys and girls decide who was going to be in which roles, for want of a better description?
So the fireground... Oh, sorry, Matt.
I thought you were saying me then, Pete. I was like...
I did, but it doesn't fucking matter. I don't care.
Go on, Matt.
She outranks you, Matt. Shut your hole, all right? You'll speak when spoken to. Matthew, you can speak now.
So basically, there's 5 roles on it. So you've got incident commander, which has to be, I want to say, has to be maximum rank of a watch manager, which I could be right or wrong.
ICL1, mate.
Is that what it is? That the cap to it? So it has to be an ICL1. And then you have to have 2 areas, obviously, the A team, a backhoe, engine control officer, and then they call it fireground, which is basically like a driver, pump operator. And it's kind of like Bence our watch manager and Golden Man, so he's in charge. Cush, we kind of like stringed in because we did an exercise as a brigade, and he was highly acclaimed as having the most tidy fireground and the ability to have that like.
I love Cush. He's a one for standards. I love that.
We were like, right, yeah, I reckon Cush would be good at this. I just wanted to wear BA because I wanted to wear BA, so we're kind of like.
Because you're a knuckle dragging moron. I'm the same.
Yeah, all right. So.
Put me towards the fire. I'll do the fire bit.
And then Amy's the only one that can count, so she was backhoe.
Got the neatest handwriting.
Love it. And then we kind of collared at Kerry, and Kerry wore with me, so...
This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Gore-Tex Professional Fabrics. Now, we all know the working environment of a firefighter is filled with challenges. We face serious risks on the job, such as heat exhaustion, burns, physical and mental stress, and we frequently come into contact with high levels of toxic chemicals. Now, I have been wearing Gore-Tex for nearly 2 decades on the front line, working in hostile environments, tackling challenging incidents from firefighting to water incidents and in urban search and rescue environments. Gore-Tex have a well-earned reputation for protecting professionals in the fire and emergency services through their family of highly innovative, waterproof, breathable moisture barriers that exceeds global performance standards and are trusted worldwide. Gore-Tex, going further together.
To help us understand the backhoe aspect of it, because we were speaking to Lars Axelsson. Do you know who Lars is, a Swedish fire nerd? We recorded with him a couple of weeks or months ago. I'll send you a link to him, Amy, if you've not seen him before. Yeah. Super interesting dude. Teaches on fire behaviour all over the world. And he was asking about why the UK are so in love with this entry control officer thing. They're like, why do you have a person stood outside watching gauge pressures? He says that is such a waste of a human being. And I did think, like, before we came on and recorded today, we were talking about adult education and child education and the differences in people's learning styles. But also, it made me think that people that educate themselves often have sort of a bit more of assertiveness, and we spoke about the differences. When you have an entry control officer, you do, I think, become reliant and a bit more comfortable with the fact that someone else is looking after you. Because like we have complaints, I work in the training department, that people are terrible at calculating turnaround pressures, they're terrible at doing gauge checks, managing the air and stuff like that. And I wonder if a factor of that is because you know someone is outside watching it anyway, whereas the Americans, the Swedes, they don't have that. Yeah. It's like, why don't you just be a competent BA wearer and watch your own air? So, I mean, like, what's your thoughts on that, Amy?
That's an interesting perspective, to be fair. It's not really one I've never really thought about it like that. I guess entry control's just, it's just one of those things. You get taught it, you learn about it, and you just, it's just a done thing. I think, particularly in our service, or I'm assuming in a lot of services, that resources generally lead us towards rapid deployment. So the opportunity to even, put entry control in place straight away is generally, a bit on the sidelines. But it's something that we learn. It's something that we keep practicing. But you're right. I think it's like a safety net, isn't it? If something happens and you don't know, you've got somebody there. It's a bit of a lifeline for the incident commander. They don't have to worry, spans of control. They don't have to think directly about what the BA crews are doing because they've got somebody asking those questions for them.
I think people think it's very dangerous is the other side of it. I mean, for you, Josh, when you've been on incidents and stuff like that, do you ever have a massive concern about the wearers? Because BA is one of those things that I always say, once you've gone through that door, I don't know what the hell you're doing anyway. I trust that you're trained and I'm going to hope that you're going to do the right thing, but you're very much self-governed once you pass that door.
Yeah, that's right. And I think we've come away, and the fire service is coming away from, when I joined in 2005, and it was like, your brief is your brief. You stick to your brief. You don't come off your brief. It's your brief. Left-hand direction search to the ground floor.
Hand. It doesn't matter if you see a raging fire in the door to your right. It's like, what the fuck?
Yeah, exactly. I was literally trained to go past a fire if it wasn't my brief. Which is just madness. And thankfully I never did it for real. But it's we definitely need to come away from that. It's interesting you say about the Swedish fire because I've got a mate. He was actually one of my sub-officers at training school. He now lives in Sweden and he's a firefighter in Sweden. And he thinks they should introduce entry control officers in Sweden. And he's having that debate now because basically for the purposes because there's a few people who they'll operate past their limits within the job and have ended up having to flipping rip masks off, stealing smoke, etc.
This is what I'm saying. That heat exhaustion, your own self-awareness. I think people like me and Matt are a little bit too full of our egos and think that we're freaking superheroes and one of us will probably die in a fire at one point in time. Touch wood, of course, hoping nothing like that ever happens. But you get delusional, I think, sometimes, don't you? Like, I'm like, you know what, I don't need anybody to watch me, and you get that from being an instructor sometimes as well. You go in, fire setting and going setting up casualties and just walking through places that are red hot. You can't see a bloody thing. You left your tick outside, so you're just kind of getting out of the building ready to prep the students. And you can get very overconfident. And I do wonder to myself, obviously I operate as a watch commander now, but it's very unlikely I'm going to wear BA operationally again. But I do think, what would I be like? Would I look after my number two, or would I be a little bit too gung-ho and put them in danger? Yeah. Because the spectrum of competency is such a wide spectrum now.
That's right. He's also got a thing, he says in Britain, why we stick together like we're stuck together at the hip, aren't we? And in Sweden, if they're in a 2 up, 2 down, they'll go in the front door. Yeah. One will go right, one will go left if they're searching, and they'll whip round the ground floor in a couple of minutes. Nice. And do the I
was assessing in Lancashire recently, and they stick on their short personal lines all the time, so they're clipped on, and it's so jerky. They're getting chucked around all over the place, and like we can't. We have to go around the same side of the sofa together because and I'm like, why don't you just hold on to the hose reel? Yeah. Like, I know where you are. You there's only one hose reel in here, unless I'm in a building that's building hose reels. Yeah. Chances are there's only one of these in here. Yeah. And at the other end of it, it's going to be a fire engine.
Exactly.
And it's like all of those references. I know there's only one set of stairs, or a wall or a window is a reference, or a door is a reference. Flow paths and stuff like that. A lot of services don't do any of this sort of stuff, and it is such a strange thing. But when I saw them clip onto each other and stay onto each other all the time, I'm like, God, this is going to take ages.
That's right. Yeah. And it's, as you say, it's jerky. It's what do you do when you come to the stairs? How do you manage a really narrow staircase when you clip together like that?
I think they just went up together.
Yeah.
But you assess the staircase. If it's solid concrete, give it a few sweep stamps, and you're like, right, we're going to progress up this together. Because ultimately, you bring a casualty down, it's you and the casualty on the stairs. So that is It is one of the only other one person that says, what am I going to do with the gun? Oh, well, that is okay if that then. It's one of those, you've got to teach things really disciplined. It's like learning to drive and driving, isn't it? You've got to make the decision-making bandwidth very short and go, no, just do this, because you don't have the contextual understanding of when that would or wouldn't be appropriate. So just do that all the time. And that was like the directional searches approach that we probably all first learned when we came in.
We still do in the service anyway.
That's one of like the hardest things about teaching and training, I think, within the fire service, because a lot of people operate on a do this, yes, I'll do that, and then they like that. They like to be told what to do. Whereas there's the other side of it who like to ask questions, and then there's the ones who want that more understanding of, well, what if this happened, or what if that happened? And when you're training, because you're obviously training for that sort of gold standard textbook technique, and then you try and relate that to how it is in the real world, and that's quite a difficult concept for people, because you train make believe, but it's the only way you can in some situations. You train make believe, but you want them to behave differently in real life. And I think it's just a tough thing to. And I you see it a lot. They said, oh, we do this, and you're like, why do you do that? Oh, because that's what we were told to do, without that background understanding. But then when you think about the fire service as a whole, there's so many things. You're like, well, why do we do that? And it's just, well, because we've always done that.
It's always been that way.
So it's like an ingrained kind of answer. There's no real reason why. It's just we've always done it that way.
Well, it's like saying about the backhoe stuff. Like, if you think that first came in the 50s or the 60s after a fire in London, where there's like 2 blokes missing for like 2 days. So it's quite a lot. If you think back then, there's no radios. I think comms lines weren't necessarily a thing by that point. So you've got to have a means of controlling people. So it makes perfect sense. Now, 21st century, most brigades, not ours, have telemetry, which runs that board runs it for you. You're literally, if you're on a telemetry board, you're there to make sure that computer works. And if it doesn't work, you've got to try and instigate some manual calculations. But that massively reduces the load that backhoe's got to do. With us, everything's manual, so you have to, as a wearer, you've got to give gauge readings. As a backhoe, you've got to ask for gauge readings, because you don't know where they are. And likewise, if something goes wrong, like a BA emergency, it's all got to be done via comms. There is no push buttons, evac buttons on our sets. And I think that kind of, although it makes things easier having a telemetry board, telemetry set, all links up, I think it's great. I think a lot of people, if they've only ever known that, you get accustomed to that it'll always work, and you then do less, if that makes sense.
Yes.
You're less skillful when it comes to that backhoe and command and control, and knowing when to prompt for messages and when to ask for this, when to ask for that, because you've got instant gauge readings. You can tell, how hard they work. You can see all of that. It's like, well, why do I need to? And as a wearer, it's kind of easier. Still, I've not really got to send a gauge reading now. I can just tell them on the top of the stairs because they can see my gauge reading. But then, is that then, as a wearer, you're not paying as much attention to what you're doing because the person outside can see what you're doing, if that makes sense. It's like taking 1960s problems with a 21st century spin, and I kind of get it to a certain extent. Like rapid deployment with a telemetry board is still fairly safe because it's a pump operator can look at that, can cast their eyes on that board every now and again. And as long as you've got a radio on 3 or 6 or whatever your comms channel are, you've kind of got it a little bit. I know it's not someone designated. Whereas for us, we've got an old school board where there's no telemetry. Yeah. So that rapid deployment is a little bit more, in my opinion, risky. It's not massively risky. It's still a safe means of command and control, but you've got to get things manually then. So you're relying on your wearers being competent people that can go in there, relay information, and withdraw safely if they need to.
I think it was 1958, isn't it? That's when they recommended tallies for BA sets, stage 1 and 2 control procedures for recording and supervising BA results. And they started going through the original duties, then control officer, procedure to be followed by crews. And then they sent out a circular into the brigades in about 1959, November, I think it was. But no, that's super. In fact, we'll put that as a link for people to go over and take a look at, because it is interesting to have that. But like you say, the principles of why you started it no one's arguing with those origins of those principles and justifications. But even now, like you say, if the board doesn't work, what's the terminology? Or just revert back to manual calculation. Today's podcast is powered by our partner Lifelines and their revolutionary approach to functional hydration. Just like in firefighting, water is essential for body function, but studies show more than 80% of firefighters are dehydrated. A 25-year study findings from the National Institute of Health showed poor hydration to be linked to early aging and chronic disease, and even mild dehydration results in significant negative impact outcomes including headaches, exhaustion, rapid pulse, irritability, and poor cognitive function. A study conducted by Yale University showed that participants who were just 1% dehydrated had a 12% increase in errors when performing tasks that required cognitive flexibility. In addition, dehydration is shown to worsen mood and attitude, contribute to confusion and poor decision making, and negatively affect memory and judgment. In other words, you really don't want your incident commander, firefighter, or for that matter any first responder on a critical scene to be even slightly dehydrated. Mild dehydration occurs when a person is just 1.5% dehydrated, a condition that does not even trigger the thirst response in most people. So just imagine how quickly a firefighter or any first responder can and does become dehydrated in their day-to-day duties, which is why I address my hydration first thing every day with Lifelines. Go into the notes for this episode and specifically check out Lifelines Hydro Fuel and Hydro OG by clicking in the notes for the podcast for a clean energy solution designed for those who demand more from their day. Now back to the show. Have you seen those different calculators that are out there? Because we were speaking before we came on about the ability to do, quick calculations in your head. And, it sounds elitist, but these aren't drastically difficult things. But have you seen the slider calculators? Do you guys have a specific thing in your service or do you just have the pre-populated calculations on the side of the board?
We have a Dorset calculator, don't we? Or Manchester clock. I can't think of what we...
Manchester
clock.
So for people that don't know what that is, what's the Manchester clock?
A little spinny wheel, basically. So it's a calculation. So your BA boards, I want to say Ogba changed it. So we calculate off 50 litres per minute. So that's what the calculation is. So 300 bar set, there's 9 litres of air, which should last 39 minutes. And then 290s, 38 minutes. And that's your working duration. So you've got working duration and a full duration of a set. A full duration is from the moment you turn it on to the moment you bleed that set completely dry. Whereas your working duration is from the moment you turn it on to the moment your low pressure warning whistle goes off. So your safety margin, which is typically like 65 bar, but I know the Thames Valley, they've got Inspiro sets now that it goes off a 75 bar. So it depends on what you've asked essentially for that to be, but it should be around about, say 15 minutes of air should be your whistle, your emergency air supply basically below that whistle. And our calculator works out, like I said, that an average person will use around 50 litres of air per minute. So we basically, on the sort of calculator, say example, they go in at 10 past 10, you set the clock to 10 minutes past, and then for each pressure, it gives you a designated time. And it's essentially that, 10 past 10, you're going over 300 bar, your working duration is 39 minutes, right, okay, it's going to be 10:49. That's when they should be back at that board, because that's when their whistle should be going off. So we've got time of whistle and time.
Do you guys think that gives for enough? Sorry, go on, Josh.
I didn't have anything to say, mate. Sorry, I was listening. I was just proud of Matt listening to him regurgitate all of that. Like I've brought Matt through since the start of his career, basically, when he joined the Encore at Gloucester North. Like, he used to come in, dragged himself. Josh, can I come in and do some training with your watch, please, or get some development? And like listening to him just then, I was like, wow, he sounds like he knows what he's on about.
Just about. But I think that's where people get confused.
I can't remember where that 50 to 55 came from, as in the general usage. It was a male walking at so many miles per minute or something like that.
I remember a lot of it because when I did my dissertation, mine was all about VO2 max, body composition, and all of that essentially on BA wears. So how long can you make a set last? Basically, is what I did. And I want to say, this is off the top of my head, and I've not read any papers on it in like 7 years.
Stretching.
It's it was 2012 or 2013. I've got the paper somewhere. They did. They basically tested the VO2 max. Why it's 42, and they went to the fire college, and there's like 100 participants, I think, in the paper, and they just made them work. Basically, they made them work to perform basic fireground sort of exercises. So a bit like the Firefighters challenge sort of thing, if that makes sense, like hauling casualties, all that kind of stuff. and they've got manual. I'm sure they wore manual gas analysis. So basically, they're breathing into a mask, so they can determine the energy systems that they're using, and from that they can determine your VO2 max. And basically, on average, they said for firefighting duties, 42 is the minimum that someone can have to wear BA.
Yeah, they've got it on people aged 20 to 29, so 41 to 44.9 is considered above average. And then 30 to 39, you've got to achieve 39, funnily enough, to 43 VO2 max. This information is available on the fireservice.co.uk thing, which again, we'll put a link for people to go back into the history and look about it. It's effectively the ability of the muscles' oxygen consumption rate and the efficiency of your the exchange of all of the byproducts of exercise, basically.
But on that paper, it recommends that an entry level of VO2 max should be around 51 to 52 to allow for that natural decay. So over the course of your career, we know that every 10 years you lose around 10% of your VO2 max just through natural age. You're less efficient, your body's not going to be as good. So they basically said the higher VO2 max you start off with, to get that VO2 max, you're going to have to be relatively well trained anyway. So you've got the kind of right mindset, mentality to, right, this person's well trained or training at least. So we know that across their career, they should be able to maintain that pass mark the entire way. That was their recommendation, but it's never gone anywhere.
So take us back to the challenge. So what was actually involved in it? You guys say you didn't get an opportunity to do as much training as you wanted to. Kind of rocked up on the day. You all looked fabulous, by the way. When we saw the photos in your dress uniform and all that sort of stuff. So fair play for remembering that. I'd have been the person still in my freaking, probably just in my Braga, just stinking to the heavens, because I always forget that sort of stuff and got my head up my ass. What was actually involved on the day?
So just on the dress uniform conversation, even that was a bit of a struggle to get everyone fitted, because we don't obviously get supplied with that kind of uniform anymore. So stores really had to dig deep to accommodate. But yeah, we got there eventually. So it was arrive on the day at Morton Fire College. You had to go to a holding area for a designated time that they drew the night before. So there was a sort of briefing the evening before. One of our station managers went to get some information for us. They allocate you a time. You have to arrive at the BA school for your designated time. They give you a safety brief. They sort of brief you on procedures at the college, so road speed limits, etc. And then it's pretty much they give you your venue. So there's 3 venues that they've identified within the college grounds that they've set up to be similar or as similar as they're physically able to do. So search patterns, search distances should be the same. Locations of the fire should be near on identical, so that every crew, every team is getting an equal opportunity. But it means that they can run sort of three consecutive scenarios within the college at the same time. So from there, you go back to the appliance, get ready. And then one of the instructors comes over, gives you a turnout ticket with your normal information that you would get, and you proceed to the allocated venue. And then it's literally arrive and do what you would normally do.
Panic.
Yeah. So what were the actual scenarios that they set you up for? Because you said there was some guidance around search patterns and some other aspects involved in it there. How much was the load on people's sort of ability to do their own search procedures, do their own approaches?
So the information given was purely the location and that it was a domestic fire person or a fire person's reported. That was all the information you got. Everything from that point was decided by the incident commander on arrival, and then obviously the BA crews once they went inside.
So you could basically do whatever search procedures you wanted to. Was a TAC vent available to you?
You basically you could follow whatever service procedures that you normally do. So yeah, you weren't. Correct me if I'm wrong. You're not allowed to operate sort of outside of your normal surface procedures. So you couldn't TAC vent if you didn't TAC vent, if that makes sense.
Doesn't that make it a bit unfair, though? Because what's the actual marking criteria for it? How do they score it?
Not entirely sure.
That's a bit that's a bit of the ambiguity of it. We don't really know. You get feedback when you've done after the incident. You get an immediate hot debrief. So the BA crews get debriefed, the incident commander gets debriefed, and the edge control and the fireground operative get debriefed. So you get your own feedback. But even at the end, they don't say, they rank obviously first, second, third for each category, but they don't give you any more than that. That's what makes it really difficult to think, right, next year we need to do X, Y, and Z to take all of the glory, not just a little bit. But yeah, it's hard.
So you won, but you don't know why you won, and you wouldn't not sure how to repeat it.
No. I mean, well, Matt can obviously tell you what feedback he got.
So how was how many ways did you have to do throughout the day, Matt? And kind of what was your experience with them?
Just the one way, yeah. So we basically turned up, and as Amy said, as soon as we got there, they said to us, as soon as Benzie gets off the truck and his foot touches the ground, that is our 30-minute time cap. So you have 30 minutes from the moment we turn up and Benzie gets off to resolve that incident. So we we got there, and it was kind of, we could see where the fire was. It was on the first floor, and there's like a little, also at the college, they've got little vent ports for the water runoff, and it was like raging in this room. And Benzie's like, yeah, it's there. It's like, right, okay, fair point. So Benzie did his 360, and then obviously came back to me and he said, right, I think I found where this is basically like a corridor to a set of stairs. You go through this door, it should be like his second right. So right, okay. He's like, just go in there. And fair play to Benzie, like, he trusts me to not be a complete imbecile. So he was like, just go in there. I want you to go right, but if you change anything, you need to tell me. And I was like, yep, that's completely fine. So Benzie can probably talk more about that.
So talk to us, sorry, Benzie, about that initial read. Because like we spoke about reading buildings, reading the smoke, reading wind direction, all that sort of stuff. For people that have never been to the college, these are massive, big concrete buildings. Yeah. Is it one of those, take it as you see it, so you haven't got to start being in training mode and going, ooh, what's the construction? Yeah. Is it what, it's a fucking big concrete building. It's the thing that's in front of you.
It's, it is take it as you see it. They've got some guidance in the briefing pack that you get. Like there was signs all over certain doors that saying no entry out of bounds, so it's like, I can't put my team in. Yeah. We basically have one way in, one way out. The construction was as you saw it. And then it was just down to me to ask questions of my assessor. Like, I was told it's a domestic property, it's a flat. I'm like, right, so the floors above it, because it was on the first floor, the 2 floors above it, are they sleeping accommodation? Are they flats? What are they? There's like, don't worry, there's nothing to worry about with that. So they give you those steers so that you don't start they don't lead you up the garden path as such. Yeah, and then for me, it was just all about situational awareness, which is like the biggest thing with incident commanders, isn't it? And we've got these little. You've got one at your station, Amy, the little thermal image camera that I took.
Yeah.
Just a little.
So do you guys and girls carry one on the back, and then the incident commander has a small one as well?
Not at the minute, but like that's a recommendation that I've put in following the challenges because we basically got it from observing crews training.
We'd like each wearer to have one as well, and I know they're expensive pieces of kit, but anyway, I digress. Did you do a lap of the build? Because all the buildings up there, you can actually drive around. Did you consider doing that versus getting off and then having to walk around? Because the 360 is always a bit of a debate point when I talk to incident commanders, because what if it's a row of terrace buildings?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to try and shimmy down the side or get through number 13 to see the back of 15 or whatever. And even for those buildings, you could, you're spending 30, 40 seconds trying to get around that big ass building. Did you guys considering getting Cush to just drive around the damn thing, or
all the assessors were in the way?
Yeah.
So there was no way to drive around the whole building.
They'll fucking move.
Yeah.
They did sort of say.
I'd love that. That would be the best thing. It's like, guys, just take it as you see it, and you get super serious, and Cush just plows one of the assessors straight over. That would have been fun. Right, Index.
They did kind of say at the beginning when they were briefing, they said if you, because they try and don't say you can't do a lap of it, but they say if you arrive at the incident ground and you just keep driving in circles trying to get a good idea of what's going on, they said they'll just start the clock on you. So
that's fine.
they kind of so they want you to make decisions. Yeah.
And we were flagged down by the panicking janitor, as you get with these scenarios. So it was like we just stopped.
So you said they gave you some information. It's a domestic building, flats. You had a quick look round. Did any of the wind directional stuff come into play, or was I'm assuming it was already ventilated? Was the front door open?
Front door was closed. There was the compartment was ventilated by a small window, and obviously, like Matt says, there are the drainage ports that you don't get on normal buildings. I could see this raging fire in there that was absolutely bouncing. I was jealous as fuck, really. But parked the truck up with taking the wind was going away from us, so I thought I parked the truck in quite a good place, but the assessor had something else to say about that. But,
interesting. So you had the wind on your back?
It was, as we were looking at the building, the wind was blowing right to left, and it was blowing everything a lot away from us. So I thought where we were, and sort of parked it as we looked at it, like sort of more towards the left corner of the building, and then set everything up towards the right. So I thought we weren't in the smoke as such. But it was. I don't know. They just had something to say about it. But they've got to mark you to a criteria to separate the teams, haven't they? So, like,
what did they say? Just out of curiosity, and we're not going to say who the assessor was, so it doesn't matter. Like what was their feedback?
Well, you'd have to speak to Kush because it was more given to him as the fireground operative, and my incident command assessor. Steve,
I bet he took it well.
Yeah. He loves a bit of criticism.
Well, I'll stop you there, right?
Because my assessor said, well, I think you parked in a decent spot for deploying your hose reels and everything like that. Shortest distance. And then I think Cush's feedback was, you're quite far from the hydrant, and the smoke could have started coming towards you there. So all right, fair enough.
Yeah, and then the building could have fallen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Got struck by lightning, etc.
Yeah. And what about that rocket that was coming past? Yeah, you're true. Yeah, sorry.
But like all told, I didn't find them too like. There was a little bit of stuff, wasn't there? Like Amy, that said about having some tape on your BA board for wind direction and that. And you're like, I can see it. There's trees and smoke blowing away.
Little things.
But they've got to have these little things to separate you in the marking criteria. So yeah.
Nice little niceties. So you did your 360. You saw the entry point. Talk to me about door assessment or door entry, Matt. What's your personal thoughts, professional thoughts, things you've seen taught in the past? Because some people can make a right song and dance about it when I see them pissing about doors for ages.
So my philosophy and what I teach is door assessment, because the reason being is that it depends. Like I always say, like the 3 H's: heat, hinges, handles. So usually tick. If a door's hot, you're going to see it. Doors, even if it's a flame retardant door and a fire door, you're going to see something. And then assess from what you see. So if that door's cold, chances are there's nothing behind that door. There's no raging inferno. So let's crack the door and have a look. Don't get me wrong, smoke is fuel. Smoke will burn. You can get cold smoke explosions. I get all that, fantastic. But in most circumstances, you can open a door up and you've got more than 3 seconds to gauge what's going on. This kind of like philosophy is, right, I'm going to open the door on 3. I'm going to put a pulse above my head, and then I'm going to put a pulse inside, and then I'm going to slam the door shut. Why? What are you gaining or losing? You're not getting a chance to actually ascertain what's in that room. And it's the same thing of like, if you're going to put a short pulse immediately inside that compartment, that's going to potentially give you a temperature check of like a meter area inside that compartment. And chances are, if that fire's not fully developed, there's going to be no heat there anyway. Because if you think of like time distance shielding, the way your radiation sort of bounces out from a fire, unless it's bouncing or immediately inside the doorway, it's going to tell you nothing at all. So I'm door assessment. Have a look. Use your tick. If there's nothing in there, let's make fast progress. There's no point doing multiple rounds on a door. You're killing time. You can kill 5 minutes on a door.
I know.
It's frustrating.
I see it with reassessments. People going, site in the blast path, marking them down straight away. I'm like, the blast path? Really? They've done an assessment. They've seen the outside of the building. It's on the opposite side of the building on the first floor. So if it was going to do a delayed backdraft, it ain't going to happen as soon as they open that door within 3 seconds, is it? It's going to have to travel through that entire bloody building, and it just shows a lack of understanding from the instructor. But they mark them down, sat in the blast path, and you're like, the blast path? What's a fucking backdraft? Or watching a film? Do you know what I mean? Let's get a grip.
That's what gets me, because like, if you look at your signs and symptoms of a backdraft, the first one is like history of a fire in high heat. So it's hot in there. There's going to be lots of moisture in that compartment. You're going to open the door up. It's going to be thick as a bag, under pressure, no doubt. There's going to be so many things that are obvious to you, like, oh, this doesn't seem right. You open the door up, and we talk about reading smoke. The velocity of the smoke, how fast that's moving, that tells you that's energy. So it's pumping out of there. Fucking hell, it's a raging inferno. If it's trickling out, it's probably not that bad. Yeah. And if there's no smoke at all, limited smoke, it might be burning really well, so it may be ventilated elsewhere. And it's having that. We spoke about people want to be drip fed and told everything on a prescribed measure. You can't do that. The job's dynamic. A fire's dynamic.
No, they want prescriptive non-negotiables. It's like, if A, then B. Well, it depends if X, Y, and Z are in there as well, and then you might want C. Do you know what I mean? It's like having still tools in the toolbox analogy, isn't it? It's having a more holistic understanding of it. But it does make it tremendously difficult when you're trying to teach people fundamentals, and then you've all got your own ifs and buts. You've got to agree to put a stake in the ground somewhere and go, we're just going to teach A, B, and C today, just to get the fundamentals. That's what's super difficult, because you'll have someone like I used to be, who's recently been on an attack vent course, and they just want to flex their knowledge, and you're just like, just shut the fuck up. It's not an ego massage for you. We're just trying to give them some fundamentals. So give us the briefing then, Josh. So you turned up, you'd done your 360, you'd had a little look at the conditions, you'd identified an entry. Kush was getting told off and getting angry with a hydrant. What happened from there?
Yeah, so
Kush knocks you out.
I'll get the brief in front of Amy as well, because she was doing backhoe, so just to make sure she was in the picture. I'd had a chat with the panicking janitor, and he told me where they needed to go. So I basically just said to them, like, the fire's on the first floor. Go in that door. Yeah. I think it was down a corridor, wasn't it, Matt, and then turn right.
Was the person's reported?
It was at that point. When we were turned out, it wasn't a person's reported fire, it was just domestic. And then you get there and he says there's 2 people unaccounted for. So had to do all of that, make the person's report, etc., etc. And then,
do you have to send comms? Do you have to send messages? Do they mark you on that?
You talk them to your assessor, basically. Verbalised to the assessor, which is like, to be fair, that's the best way to do it, isn't it? Like, rather than me messing about on a radio to someone who doesn't know our radio procedures, etc. Me panicking, like, oh, mate pumps millions. It's going like fuck. And so I can't remember what it was now, Matt. We're in the door, weren't we? Down a corridor, second door on the right, and up some stairs, something like that. Yeah, and so I told them to go in. and said there was possibly a fire on the ground floor, so I'd ID'd some smoke coming out of the door downstairs. So it was like, was there a smoke bin or something like that?
Yeah, there's a little small fire on the. It was the 3rd or 4th compartment on the right.
Yeah, so I told them there's possibly a small fire on the ground floor, but it's the fire compartment's on the main fire compartment's on the 1st floor. Go to that fire compartment yourself, use your thermal image camera, ID the flow path, and put the fire out. And and search and rescue at the same time. It was kind of like a deliberately, like, people want, like we're saying, like a structured, like left-hand directional search. Firefighting, search and rescue.
It's hard because you're like, I've not been in there. You know what I mean? I've spoken to a panicked resident, and then people try and give a super structured brief. But the problem is you're relying on a competent wearer to dynamically risk assess, because they're going to have the best eyes when they get in there, and they do need some freedom to be able to self-direct. And you've not even been in there yourself. So it's almost, you've got to give a bit of a vague brief. Matt, talk to me about going above the fire and thoughts on that, because that's a provocative conversation amongst people, and then the arguments of, well, is the fire the priority or is the casualty priority? Because when you heard, right, there is a fire on the ground floor, did that factor into your thinking?
Yeah, massively. So I remember things where going above the fire is, for me, when we went in there, it was smoke. It was pretty smoke logged, but not heavily. So like, there's definitely something on the ground floor, because smoke doesn't fall down. Smoke, heat rises, smoke goes up. So it's got to be something.
Yeah. Well, this is a problem though. Sorry, like, when you see people train on gas rigs, how frustrating is that? Because it's not realistic, is it? And you're like, there's fire on the ground floor. Why would there be fucking smoke on the ground floor? There wouldn't be. Why would it be sat low down?
And
this doesn't make any sense. It's so ridiculous. It's training scars.
When we train as well, we often smoke everything out on the ground floor, and it's all the fires on the first floor. It's like, well, that's not. We're trying to make it difficult. Don't get me wrong, because you're trying to teach people to keep, sweep and stomp, all that. I get that. But in reality, is that wouldn't be a thing. So as soon as we got in there, Ben said to me, right, go in there, do a right directional search. He said, like, there's a corridor coming up. You'll find the stairs. That's how you get up. I was like, right, okay, great. So we went in, and there's like a little box room, and there was 2 doors. And I went to the right. I said to Kerry, I said, right, we're just going to check this door before we proceed on. So open the door up, and there's nothing in there. No doors, no stairs. I was like, right, I'm happy that's not the way we need to go. We shut that door, went to the next door, and that's when we could sort of see a corridor.
Who was carrying the tick?
We both had
one or two.
Because that was kind of...
there you go, you see. So, that's the flex, isn't it? It's nice to be able to have it.
Me personally, as a team leader, I prefer to have the tick. I think there's a lot of downtime, particularly if you're going, to a first or second floor. There's plenty of downtime where your number 2 is managing hose, and if you've not got a tick, you're just twiddling your thumbs. And yes, you can search the vicinity of an area, but with a tick, it's like, right, you're going to get some hose. I'm going to look for a flow path. It just makes it.
You can try and use your torch to identify a bit of a flow path or something like that. But I always call them tactical pauses. Gives you a moment to condor where you just take a knee, head up, have a look around. Right, is there any pinch point for the hose? Where am I going? Right, I can see something emerging top floor on the left. And I'm just verbally talking all this aloud to BA2 whilst they go. What do you think the travel distance was looking like? It was obviously a quick, because that would have been my concern, is the buildings there are, some of them are quite large, and it's that thing. Sometimes they set up standard drills with extended hose reels just so the crews can achieve it. But like on your assessment, you don't want to run out, do you?
I pretty much used the full 60 meters in the building. We were like all the way in, and so when we went on that corridor on the ground floor, as we were progressing along, on that tick sweeping the doors, and there's a door. We found a door to the stairwell, and it was just smoke locked with no real heat. And there's another door that was like 120 degrees. And I said to Kerry, right, we have to check this room first because it's on our way out. It's our egress. I know it's a concrete building with a steel door, but we can't go past a potential seat of a fire. So check that room. There was a fire burning in there, but it's pretty much gone into decay. It was putting itself out. So we knocked that down. And as I'm doing that, Kerry's searched to the left, found the first casualty, and then we whipped that out pretty fast. And I sent a message to Amy like, fire located, casualty located, withdrawing, and within about 30 seconds or less than that, we'd presented this casualty outside, and bless, all of them are like still trying to set the fire ground up. It's like, oh shit, what do we do with this? It's like, so we just
boom,
take
it. What was the so talk for me a second about, you're identifying a fire, opening up the room. Are you looking around to see if there's a vent already created? Because it's a good opportunity to talk about anti-ventilation. I mean, if that's a room that's already closed down, fire's indicated, it's going to put itself out. You could just hit the fire really hard, call the boundaries, close it down, and you're just going to collapse that triangle. That this is a steel door. It's not going to spread through.
That's exactly what we did. So we literally opened up and just jetted it, blapped it out, and then grabbed the casualty, shut it down. There's no in that room. There was no other windows, no other doors. It was just a little sealed compartment. So it's like, right, happy days. It's going nowhere. As we came out, knocked it, shut it down.
Limited fuel. It's not going to spread to another building. There's not, load of sofas and shit in there. It's like, but that really worries people. Like, oh no, we can't walk past the fire. I'm like, look, close it down. It's in decay anyway. You're just going to make it worse for the fire by just hitting it with all of that water, all that oxygen, all that sort of heat thief. There's no oxygen. You've just taken a lot of the heat out, close the door down, and it's going to suffocate itself. But people struggle with that aspect of it. How heavy were the casualties?
Kerry carried all of them.
Kerry dragged him.
I think they're like...
That's Kerry.
Did you have a chance to handle any of them outside, Amy? And what's your kind of thoughts? Because you do a lot of competing. You're super fit. You're probably one of the rare, with respect, females in the services. Because there's a big conversation that always frustrates me around the weight of casualties.
I didn't get an opportunity to handle them outside, to be fair. One of the sort of criteria for the entry control was that you kind of you were almost stuck to your entry control point. I just had to watch Kush running around like a blue ass fly, to
Bless
be fair.
him. He loved it.
Yeah, he did. You could tell. So yeah, well, in general, like we've got casualties on our stations that we train with that were obviously 30 or 50, which is 50 is the standard. 55 is the best one that we can use for our firefighter fitness challenges. But we overweight that for when we do the Cheshire Challenge, when we train for the British. So we have to sort of like pack it with weighted vests and things like that.
But even then, you're only taking it up to like 60, 65 kilos, aren't you? Which is not even 10 stone.
I think that dummy to me, because I ended up dragging that first one from the door, because like Matt said, it flew out the door at us. Like they hadn't been in it. Been in like 1 minute, 2 minutes, and there's a casualty just appears at the door. I'm like, good skills, guys. But so Kush was running. I think he was running out of covering jet or in the hydrant. So I was like, well, we can't leave casualty there. So I went and dragged it. Which have got a little bit of a bollocking for from the assessor. He's like, you're incident commander, you shouldn't really get involved in that. And then I sort of said, well, I'm not going to leave him there. He goes, nah, yeah, fair one, for real, you wouldn't, would you? So,
exactly.
Yeah, anyway.
Unless you're going to have a second pump rolling up straight behind me. What was the reason we came here? Well, we came here to stop fire spread and save a casualty.
Exactly.
Well, casualty sat there.
Exactly.
So I'm a trained first responder. I'm going to carry out first aid if I need to.
I've run drills for up and coming incident commanders, and one of the first things I'll do is I'll leave our training building. I'll leave a dummy half in, half out of the door with smoke coming out of it around the back, an external door, and they'll walk past it. And then they'll go around the front and they'll go to a member of their crew, go get the dummy that's hanging out. You're like, why wouldn't you just drag them out at least and shut the door? Like, so anyway, that it felt like a 60 to me, that dummy. It felt like it was heavier. It wasn't a 30. It was definitely, but like you're saying about that, we're just not training realistically. What's the average weight? It's like 85 kilos of a person in Britain.
Yeah, it's about 12, 13 stone of an average UK resident. So we're nowhere near. We've got an expanding waistline. Everyone's getting much poorer health conditions. And the people that get stuck in fires tend to be old or overweight or unfit, unhealthy people whose life is in decay. They're struggling. So why are we training with 10 stone casualties?
Yeah, exactly.
It's just ridiculous. I think you're setting people up to fail.
Yeah, you really are. And people get a false idea of their own abilities and exactly how long they can make a set last. I had a crew. I put 4 dummies in the training building the other day. They rescued all 4, and I said to them after, "There's no way you're doing that for real. There's absolutely
so when
no
someone
way."
says, I'll take the adult and the baby. You're never going to do that. Chance. You are never going to take both casualties. I know you can't. You've got them both under one arm each, and you just heroing it out the front door. You're never going to do that. You ever tried to? I'm sad. I get my wife and my daughter to practice trying to pull me with a towel or pull with a bedsheet, because I have these human tests where I'm like, if Daddy got stuck upstairs, how would you get him down? If we got stuck here, how would you move? I could never do that. And it's just a fun little thing to do. It's just playing around. We do all sorts of stretching and yoga and just playing silly games and balancing and stuff. But it's like, how would you move Daddy? You could move me, and I'm like 18 and a half stone. I used to be 24 stone, for God's sake. Do you know what I mean? Are you going to be able to pull me out? Are you going to be able to move me? So it's all of those biomechanics and stuff like that. But people say, musculoskeletal injuries and stuff like this. Look, there's casualty handling straps. We do manual handling training. For God's sake. You know what I mean? When they say it reduces the risk, okay, well then why don't we do all safe working at height on the ground? And let's just teach the theory of it. Let's never go into the water, because that shit's dangerous. It just really triggers me.
Yeah. Funny story, I just had that battle.
When we do the the British Firefighter Challenge training, we do obviously a lot of our training on station. And there's always, there's the odd comment about, people who don't do this, they can't start with the heavy casualty, or you do work up to, warm up and do this, that and the other. And is your risk assessment this? And I don't think you should really be using, tires and stuff. It's not that I'm wishing this on anyone, but the people who get involved in the British Firefighter Challenge, not only are we, into fitness generally anyway, but we're all, pretty switched on people. We don't go and do that to try and get an injury. It's to try and be better for our role. And it is a frustration of mine that I've come across a lot of barriers about doing functional training and, stuff out on the drill yard because someone could trip, and PPE and blah, blah, blah. And I get it. I do get it, because it's a business, isn't it? And injuries cost money and sickness costs money. And damages the establishment when we're under because people have got injuries. But the only way you're going to stop people getting musculoskeletal injuries is to ensure that their health and fitness is
the best thing, you look at a risk assessment, look at a risk matrix. The strongest thing is prevention. So how do we prevent it? Let's make more resilient, more competent, more physically capable firefighters, safety in the communities. Let's make safer buildings. Let's make more educated people around firefighters. Do you know what I mean? We don't tend to apply that to this because it also acts as a barrier to entry. There's a big elitism stuff. That's why I love people like yourself, Amy, not to make it about the sex game or anything like that, but people like yourself are a real idols for women trying to get into the services, because it takes away the analogy of meatheads like me or Matt just thinking, oh, they're big, strong, white male firefighters. Only those people can do it. And of course, they would talk about dragging heavier casualties. Well, Amy can do it. Amy's really short, but she's just super fit, and she's probably more intelligent than me and Matt, that understands how to use her body and manipulate things to make it work. You are short. You're shorter than me and Matt.
Wow.
Yeah. How
so
tall are you?
people.
Sorry. Yeah. So when anybody says a bit, that means they're short.
On a good day.
It's like when your kid says, I'm 3.5. You're like, so you're 3 then? You're not 3.5. That's, but no, sorry. I digressed. Josh, take us back to the incident ground. Yeah. So with first casualties come out, did they ask you to rebrief, or do you just chuck Matt back in, or do they even consult that?
No, you just went straight back in on your brief, didn't you, Matt?
Self-deployed. You just can't stop him. Doesn't care. He's not stopped listening by that point, hasn't he?
They'd only been in there a couple of minutes, so I know they'd not gone up to that first floor. So I'm just like, right, get back in there and put the fire out.
Interestingly, that was feedback that I got, and I talked about this with the crew after. So my feedback was when they came out with that first casualty, but even though they came out in about 3 seconds flat, their expectation, or there was marking points available for, did I get the crew back to entry control? Did I make visual contact with them? Did I have a conversation about their welfare?
Did you get the location of that casualty? Did you know they'd come across a fire? Okay, I agree with you. But then you get into tick box realms, aren't you? And it's like
we said, they've got to have marking criteria points available to separate the teams. But it is that for me is a little bit like, why they've been in there 2 minutes. I know I had a quick chat at the door. I know they're good. Crack on.
Was there any opposition towards you going towards the door, Josh? Because I always get told off for poking my head in front doors when I'm at jobs.
None at all. They were quite.
I remember when I joined. I remember being on the first floor, and it was like the bedroom was involved, and me and a BA wearer, and my watch manager crawled up behind me. The dude's in his late 50s. He's just there. He's nice and low. Right, fellas, when you get in there, and I'm like, the fuck are you doing
genuinely,
here? And he's coughing and spluttering, and it's just a whole different world back there.
Genuinely happened to me as well on the third floor of a townhouse, and me and my mate wearing BA, and I can hear, it's coming over your heads, fellas, it's coming over your heads, and there's my sub officer. I'm like, what are you doing in here? But but I didn't get any comeback from that. They sort of like, somebody had to move that casualty, and you went to check on the welfare of your BA crew at school. So it's pretty reasonable. And then so just redeployed them in to go and fight the fire. Because at the end of the day, the way we can save lives, save buildings, is by putting the bloody fire out really quick. And people forget they're doing all this fancy stuff and setting up the fire ground all like really nice. It's like if you just get your BA in the door quick enough, you can put in a rapid intervention. You remove the hazard. Job done. Like I don't know why we're messing around.
This is that aggressive attack analogy that you hear the Americans talk about. Have you ever heard of the combine harvester analogy for it?
Yeah.
I always think that's a beautiful one. And they're always like, there's a child lost in the field. Do you switch the combine harvester off first, or do you spend time looking for the child with the combine harvester still running? Go and switch the combine off. Go and attack the fire. Get ventilation in behind you. Immediately lifts conditions and gets that's a point we didn't ask. Sorry, we said that you could use TACVEN if you use it in service. Was there any services that did request a fan that were allowed to use it? Because obviously in your service it's not currently practice. You don't do phase 3, so that limited your ability to use.
We encountered a little bit of sour grapes in the bar afterwards from a certain service who will remain nameless. I had to rebrief the one fella because he did say that Matt and Kerry only won best BA because Kerry's a female. So he and I had
that's just a dickhead.
Yeah,
really.
he and I had quite a frank discussion at the bar about that. I rebriefed him and then put that to bed, because then he came back to me. He's like, "You're not going to make a complaint." I was like, "No, I'm not, but you're a dickhead."
Yeah.
Like and there's no room in the fire service anymore for it. Let's face it. Like and that man, he is what HMIC are on about with regard to cultural problems.
Yeah.
White male thinks he's the dog's bollocks and that anybody's female's shit, etc. Yeah, and they were quite butthurt for want of a better word, because they were like, well, we do phase 3 and we do what we do. We use the fan aggressively and we do all of this, and like what you guys are post fire, so you didn't use any of those tactics. Why should you have won? It's like, because our BA crew.
So they did use phase 3, did
they?
So
if their service does it, they can do it. If that makes sense.
That should have been a massive advantage, because it can speed up your ability to make progress. It's obviously the conditions are better. It's not as hot. The visibility's higher. But obviously they must have messed up some of the stuff.
Well, the one thing I said to him, I was like, so you did all of that. You got your fan in and stuff. He's like, yeah. I said, did you put both fires out? He went, there's 2 fires. I was like, yeah, there's 2 fires in all the scenarios, mate. Like, did you rescue both casualties? No, we only rescued 1. That's probably why you didn't win then, mate.
So talk to us about that second commitment, Matt. So you went back in. I'm assuming you'd sorted out on the left, so went straight to the right. You'd already recognised where the stairs were.
We fast tracked straight back. So at that point, because the door was it's like a bilateral flow path, we kind of closed the door a little bit behind us, but obviously that smoke still escaping from the compartment, so it kind of cleared quite well, so we could see. Enough with a torch, we could see the ground pretty well. So I said to Kerry, I was like, look, I'm happy to make fast progress. The floor's clear. We've gone this route. Let's just go along this corridor. The door's there. So we fast-tracked along the corridor like a follow. So Kerry just took behind me. We just went straight. Found that door to the stairs. Ticked up the stairs. No signs of heat, but loads of smoke logging. You could tell, like, on that landing on the first floor, it was just banked down. So I started making progress up, put some pulses up, and water was dropping back down. So I'm thinking, right, it's not too hot. As I was going up the stairs, Kerry managed to locate the utility isolation. So on Benson's brief, it's like, the blokes told me in the stairwell, that's where the utilities are. So we found that and did that and let Bacco know.
Good girl, well remembered. Easy stuff to forget, that is, when you're just trying to shoot through. She's got to manage the hose. She's got to the bottom. She's probably took a knee while you're on your way up. Having the cognitive horsepower to be able to pause and go, shit, right, I can see it. I remember what's meant.
Kerry Large is a banging firefighter. I've worked at some whole time and on call. I've worked here on call with her since the start of her career. And from like day one, I'm like, she's a firefighter. She's a firefighter. She just needs experience. And it's like you say, to do that with the sort of, we don't get that many fires anymore, do we? Let's face it, like what you were faced with. To remember that from my brief outside, which I've forgotten to talk about today. And she's remembered that and gone, and that was one of the big plus points. It's like, because the assessor just said to me, I was like, they've done the services, by the way. I'm like, winner.
You can get into a rabbit hole with that, though. We start talking about services, and then we're like, oh, okay, is the building got a gas feed? And you can waste a lot of time talking, is a gas... Look, most of the time, if it is electric, it will have tripped itself out. But what if the solar panels? What if there's now a lithium-ion battery storage in the building? Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay, well, let's spend 20 minutes outside the building talking to National Grid before we even consider going. It's a bit like, it is what it is. We're going to be safe as we can, making progress, hanging cables, treat them as live, all of that sort of stuff. But you can get into that procrastination of decision-making vortex, can't you?
So we basically got to the first floor, and then Kerry came with me, and as Kerry's coming up, I'm like ticking, and the door to our left was like red hot, like 100-something degrees. So I said to Kerry, when you get up here, we're going to go to the left. Obviously, that's a change of brief, so I assessed the door first. I was thinking the fire could be behind this door. So we opened that door up, and it's like another room. Another door then on the right-hand side, which was like 200 degrees. It's like, right, fuck me. It's on that side now. So I didn't send any messages because I'm flickering between, I've gone left, but now I've gone to the right. And I was like, you're going to follow a hose reel. If I go down, you're going to follow the hose reel and find me. So it is what it is.
This is what I'm saying. Yeah, it's like, where do you think the crew's going to be? They're probably going to be at the end of the frickin' hose rail. Yeah. People are like, oh, but you didn't brief them to. Well, people don't even know where I am. So I was on the ground floor. I've come to the first floor. I've switched to the left, switched to the right. What are you expecting the backhoe to write all of that down and try and visually comprehend where they think you are? You can spend a hell of a lot of time messing about on radio messages at that point.
A radio message to Baco saying gauge readings on the first floor, and that I'd located signs of heat, and then we just went in and literally left, then right. And when we got to the fire door compartment, we did that door assessment and banged the jet in and my pulse in, and straight away it's like gassing off. It's like, shit, it's hot in here. So we shut it down again, and we're like, right, okay,
Spicy.
On 3, we'll go in and we'll commit. So did the door procedure, went in, and I'm like on the left hand side, and I'm like at this point crawling. Because the neutral plane was quite low, and the moisture, we literally went in there and boof, like I couldn't see shit. I'm like back of the hands, still can't see anything. It's ready. So at this point, like Kerry's like behind me, we're on like a follow, going along the wall. So I'm like blapping jets. I'm blapping some pulses up, trying to knock it all back. It's gassing off, and there's more and more moisture. So the first like 10 seconds, I kid you not, I was fucking crawling. I couldn't see anything. I'm like hands on the left hand wall. I'm just like trying to swipe. Just trying to see what's going on.
yeah, that's the point. And then even if you try and bring the tick up, the tick is just all glazed over as well, and you're like,
too much. And that's the thing. You kind of came on.
Yeah. Well, so in your mind, as number 2, then is Kerry checking with the tick as well? Are you expecting her to be looking around for casualties, and also on hose management? Do you guys coil up a few loops and carry him with you, or do you navigate and pull more in at pinch points? How do you tend to go about that?
Like the looping things, I think looping goes well when you can see. If you can't see, you might as well just. It's not going to work as well. So it was pinch points. So we literally came in.
No, people say I loop it and then I drop one loop as I go. I never get that. Never works for me because I drop the wrong loop and then I'm just tying the hose reel in bloody knots. It's
so that's what we did. So literally, as you've gone in, because we've gone on the left hand side because that's the wall. Because as I looked in the room, you could tell the flow path was coming from left to right. So it's the left hand side, but behind essentially behind another wall. If that makes sense. You kind of went in and the room went 90 degrees, then 90 again. So we could tell, that's right, you check to the right as we go in. So Kerry checked to the right and then come back to me as I'm like crawling along. And I kept trying to get the tick up to look for another flow path, but it was hitting low sensitivity mode because of the heat. And then it's just like, right, it's whiting out. So thankfully, as we like pushed on, you could then start to see the glow of the fire because we're low enough. It's like, right, okay, there it is. So I started firefighting. And as I'm doing that, the neutral plane obviously starts to lift because we're putting some water in, and as we're applying that water, it's contracting the gases, so it's lifting up. And that's when it's lifted, and me and Kerry have both, or Kerry first, like there's a casualty right there. She spotted it, and she's like, right, I was like, right, grab it, and just get yourself out, follow the hose out. And like Bensi was saying, Kerry's a very competent person, so me saying, grab it and follow the hose out, she was like, yep, bosh. So grabbed hold of it, out she went, and as she's retreating back along the hose, I'm still firefighting because it's, to be fair, it's fucking raging because no one had put that fire out all day. So just been building and building and building, just keep loading that crib. So our first attack, I pretty much cooled most of the compartment, made a little attack on the fire, but just it wasn't going out. I was thinking, fucking hell, this reel is not going to put it out at this rate. So then once Kerry said, I'm out of that fire compartment, I'm in the first room, the second room on the left. Right, okay. So I then withdrew back. We shut it all down, brought the first casualty out, and then we basically recommitted. And when we went in there, we got all the way back up, fast track to the top, and then same thing again, got down, hands and knees, crawled around because it was still hot, and then we started firefighting. And it did take probably a good minute and a half to actually put the fire out. And it's one of them things where I don't know if you're still teaching the whole painting and all that kind of stuff, but that shit's not going to work. I mean, you're not applying enough water and enough volume, enough flow rate to put it out. So it's literally at that point, it's a jet on, just banging at the fire.
Well, people talk about painting because they're on about if you hit it with a straight jet, you're going to bounce the fire and it's going to spread the fire to other parts of the room. I don't buy any of that shit. If there's that much of a raging fire going on in the room, all of that radiated heat has already affected everything in the rest of the room. It's probably already hit flashover. It's a fully developed fire. So why not hit? Because then people argue, well, then you're going to turn all that straight into steam and all of that heat layer is going to come down on top of you. But if you've got the door open behind you, you've got that bidirectional flow path. So there is a way for that pressure to escape out of that room. Did you consider looking for a vent? Did you consider trying to find a window?
So with that point, like people, what makes you laugh is when we kind of teach like the CFBT stuff, it's in a container that's like 10 meters by 2 meters. So you're gonna apply any water to a steel surface, it's hot anyway, so you're gonna get more steam than you would in a domestic building. But it's all about, for me, it's the volume of anything. The volume of a room matters. If you're in a fucking shoebox and you apply lots of water, it's going to be pretty hot. If you're in a massive warehouse, or we're in like a massive, the rooms are like 10 by 10, fucking huge, with a small seat of fire. That steam's not going to have a very direct effect on you unless you're quite close. And depending on, there's so many, like firefighting, it depends. And for us at that point in time, I said to Kerry, I said, look, we're going to have to grin and bear this for a minute. It's hot anyway. It's red hot because the entire compartment has been raging all day and no one's put it out. So you've just got, the active pushback, that thermal pushback is going to get us either way. So we're going to grin and bear it. And to Kerry...
What did they let you wear underneath your fire kit?
We're just uniform, basically. We don't have any burgers and nothing like that, but yeah. I wear skins.
You didn't have anybody and turning up and everyone threw on some Braga and a second flash hood or anything like that to try and game it?
I'd wear like a thermal, a moisture wicking barrier, which is what I wear when I teach, just because it helps keep me cool. But when we're in there, it's like, Kerry, on the second wear, so we pretty much put the fire out when we're like from distance, and I said to Kerry, right, okay, let's find a vent and let's do some hydraulic ventilation. Let's try and get some heat out the compartment. And bless her, she must have been behind me. She's all right, okay, so just follow the wall. So she gets up, and obviously I must be the fucking meat shield, because she's like, oh, it's quite hot in here actually. And she's like walking along the wall, and she gets to the window, and she's like, cracks the window open. She's like, fuck, it's quite hot in here. And I was like, yeah. And she come back to me, and she's like, I think you're shielding me for like that. And I was like, yeah, I'm fucking red hot. So, and then we got that window open the compartment, and then I started hydraulic ventilating. So just putting a long pulse, well, not long pulse, a wide angle jet through that window.
Cone.
And initially,
just like a 20, 30 degree style cone, depending on the size of the window, and just allow it to draw.
Where we were, it wasn't a very big window, and we kind of ran out of hose, which is the one thing we got on our feedback is we had about 2-3 meters of hose left in the landing. Our assessor said, if you'd pulled that in, we could have like pretty much got on top of the fire, because I was having to like indirect firefight at one point. Like, it was awkward, but we did it. But the hydraulic ventilation, just opening that window, the heat difference was quite big, and I didn't think it cleared the smoke that much. But our assessor and like Bensi and Amy and everybody else outside said you can actually see quite a nice punch out when we opened it up. So
dude, that's a great shout.
So we did.
It's an old school tactic, isn't it? But it's just as relevant today. Like we're post fire ventilation, so it's a good way to do it. And the B8, because it's so controllable. Like if it's going a bit wrong, just shut it off and close the window again.
And I think the arguments against it is, people talk about a fire gas ignition outside the window or potential for vertical spread, and I'm like, you're demonstrating a lack of holistic understanding of dynamics of what might happen there. Vertical spread, extraordinarily unlikely. Because the temperature range probably won't be there. B, if I'm actually in the room and I'm going to be hydraulically ventilating, I'm going to be doing a rapid call to everything that I'm pushing out of that window anyway. And again, you're there at the vent, so worst case scenario, you can just close it down. But you're doing it because it's likely there's only a single seat of fire there.
That vent as well. Sorry, so we're not fucking sat under a window venting, so you're in the flow path that you're creating. We're at distance away, so we're drawing from behind us and pushing like that water's acting like a pushing force. We're physically pushing smoke out of that compartment. As long as no one's in that, which no one was, you're fine. And like you said, you're cooling it. You're already cooling the gases ready, so they're not going inside that flammable range. Chances are there's nothing outside that's an ignition source or that's super hot that's going to fucking superheat gases. It's not going to happen.
100%. So was that index? Everyone withdrew, knock off makeup.
We started then coming out, so the fire's out, let's go. And we pretty much got out. I think we're on the way out, and the bloke said, "Oh, it's end X." I assessed it. I was thinking, "Oh shit," because a part of the assessment criteria we thought was like we have to come out as a BA wearer, like disrobe, safety, safe undress, all that kind of stuff. So I was thinking, Christ, I've like stuffed it for us here because we've not done that. And then Bensi later found out. I think was it 24 minutes. Bensi, we're done in 24 minutes.
Yeah.
So they called it. They called it early.
Nice. Oh, so you thought you'd time capped it? You thought you'd gone over? Yeah. Yeah. Well, you got it 3 times, realistically, haven't you? There, you've got 2 casualties and then recommitted to put the fire out. So that time warp there. I mean, you must have had 24 minutes. So 24 minutes immediate deployment. You've been into 20 minutes. Quite working duration. What did you come out with?
I was at the door at about 85 bar, I think.
Your whistle went out the door.
Yeah, it was like the perfect way.
Because I was stood right there, and your whistle, I was like, "Well done, Matt.
Well
played." But that was the one thing they said to us as well. We were the only team to do the whole wear on 1 cylinder.
Yeah.
So people coming out changing cylinders, and I was trying to think about this the other day, but
that's an interesting approach, because I don't think a lot of national guidance would like you coming out changing cylinders and recommitting.
The thing is, the whole 30 minutes after, was it an hour after a hot wear and 30 minutes after like a cold wear or whatever they say.
Yeah.
Ambient.
That's what ambient. That's the word I'm looking for. That's just guidance, really. I mean, if you're fit to wear, you're fit to wear. If you're not, you're not. I think some people use that as an excuse. Oh, I've had an ambient wear. I can't wear again for at least 3 hours. It's like, really, if you're going to have to wear, you're going to have to wear. But one thing I didn't really think about until I was having a conversation yesterday with Kai, who's he's on call in our brigade and whole time in another neighbouring brigade, and their brigade they have. I think 6.3 litre sets, so they're not 9 litre sets. So it says that their working duration is like 25 minutes.
Really?
So thinking, oh shit, right, if they've all got 25 minute sets, maybe that's why they're so surprised. But our sets are 9 litres, so I don't know.
I have not seen
the new
them.
MSA sets, they're 6.8s. The ones that LFB and the West Mids are getting, they're like working durations of 30 minutes, I think 32 minutes. But they've done loads of voodoo science, and they've basically said that the reduction in weight, I think it's like 6-7 kilos reduction in weight, that allows you to be more efficient. You're carrying less weight, you can go for longer, if that makes sense. The idea is it balances out. A lighter cylinder, that's there.
Yeah. What's the cylinder pressure they go to then? Because we obviously went from 220s to 300s. And now with the 6.7 litre, what are they getting?
The MSA ones, they're like 6.8 litres, and then I want to say they're like just shy of like just shy of 2,000 litres of air, I think. They're meant to be 30-minute sets.
I'll have a look for it. Yeah.
When I started, we were on. We had the contour sets, which were 200 bar cylinders. We chuck them up to 200 bar, and you could make that last 25 minutes.
Yeah.
So.
Oh no, there's still a 300 bar cylinder. So I'm just looking at it now. So they've got it's the MSA 6 litre 300 bar cylinders. Yeah, but they're only 6 litres. Wow, they're dinky little things.
That set is the set. That's their kind of only one they make. Pardon me. You can twin them as well, so you can take 2 6.8s and twin them together for like your heart teams and your EDBA in London and that.
Yeah, the extended duration sets. Yeah, and I think that's the thing with the back plates. They're a little bit wider, so they can allow for that, can't they? What's your personal preferences around Draeger versus Interspiro and the new MSA stuff? Has anybody got any favourites?
I don't like Interspiro at all.
You don't like Interspiro?
So
why?
I've got 3 reasons. The first reason is the way the face piece itself. If you look at Inspiro, like it's a massive scuba diving brand as well, and the face piece is like that. It's like a scuba diving mask. So your actual, it's not like a panoramic face piece like Draeger have or Scott have or Sabre Contours. Like you can't see as much. The way the LDV sits in the face piece as well, like weights in my opinion, weights the face piece. So it feels like you're a little bit like one-sided. And the height of the cylinder, because our set adjusts on the waistbands opposed to the shoulders like a Draeger set, the cylinder sits so high up your back. So like, for example, if we're doing British firefighter training, rolling a hose up, you can't lift your head to see. But that then relates confined space stuff. You can't lift your head in a confined space with that set on. You're literally boxed. You can't see anything. There's no way of you looking up at all. Whereas working at the college in Draeger sets, perfect.
I love the comms systems on the
Yeah.
Interspiro, though. I think the comms systems and how quickly you can change a cylinder, I think, are
the
two
quick
advantages.
connect, but that's, MSA get that now. Drake have got that now. That quick connect's kind of, they might have pioneered it, but that's going to be rolling out. And Spirocomms is all right. I mean, I have my own philosophy on them. They're kind of great until they're not great, and then they're really bad. But it gives you a false sense of security.
What about yourselves?
I don't know any different. I mean, when we basically landed at training school with the brand new Interspiro set. So we were the first to do BA training in our service. So I was the only other experience I've got of like the back plate and the cylinder is obviously what we used during the British Firefighter Challenge. I have to agree with Matt. They do seem less cumbersome to move around in. Yeah, but other than that,
I think most
that's
places
all
are
I know.
using the S9 now with the Interspiro sets. I think that's their latest ones. I'll have to have a quick glance at their website at some point in time. What about yourself, Spence?
I mean, I'm on like my 4th BA set in my career now because I was trained on Draeger at my training school, and then had to do a when I came back to service, had to do a conversion to Sabre console. Then we got Scott Pro Packs, which I really liked. They were just like a better version of the Sabre console. And it was just a very simple set. And they had this, like, they called it an EMU thing, which is kind of like our computer unit now. It's like a great big floppy thing, just got in the way. And in the end, we just removed it and just had a board on tube with an old grey DSX unit with the Italian and that. And that was a brilliant set because it's so simple. And then we went to we did that with Avon and a few other services, and we ended up with Interspiro. And I think what really sold it was the comms and the telemetry ability, which we don't use.
Really?
Yeah, which we've got we use the comms obviously, but we don't use the telemetry. And Scott was the next best, or so they say in the tests, but they weren't telemetry ready. So they said, "Oh, we're not going to buy them because they're not telemetry ready," and then we've never got the telemetry for Interspiro. So it was like, and then like the ambient air hatch as well, which has caused no end of near misses in our service. And do you know what that is, Pete?
Sorry, no, for people that are unfamiliar with it.
So our version of the Interspiro set, the Incurve, you can get it with this ambient air hatch, which you basically, to come off of air, you can open it and then you'll just breathe in the air that's around you, and then to go under air, you click a valve and it closes, and then you're breathing from the cylinder. So it's probably one of those things where like the good idea fairy visited Interspiro and said, like, I've got a good idea, and waved their magic wand, and they came up with this thing. But the problem with it is like we've had people going past entry control with it still open and walking into a smoke-filled environment, and then quickly realise, oh shit.
Yeah, I can see both sides of it, because I quite like the ability for you to manage your own air. I mean, that's what part of me likes the American stuff, where they can choose when to put their cylinder on, they can choose when to take their masks off, and like the quick release LDVs on Draeger and stuff like that. I can and do just sometimes just clip them on and off if I'm just trying to do something. But then people get super concerned, like, oh no, you've disconnected your ODV, you got to do a whole new general check and stuff like that. And then it just, stuff you do as an instructor is very different to stuff you'd ever do as a BA, where you're just doing whatever the hell you want most of the time just to get the course to run well.
As an incident commander, I quite liked it when we first got it, because I could, like, if I'm going to run off, do my 360, talk to someone, whoever, I could just say to my guys, like, get masked up, get everything on ready, and I'll come back and brief them, and then they just close their ambient air hatch and away they went. As long as they remembered to do that was the problem. And we still keep getting people not closing the thing, then going and getting a lung full of fire gases, and it's because they're using it inappropriately. So I kind of prefer if it was just on the set, and then it was, remove the problem, and that's that done. But as a set, I don't mind it. I just find like there's little things with it. Like, I agree with Matt about the mask. I think that was a step backwards. Like the Scott Pro Pack masks, you had real good vision. They were kind of like the sort of like more fishbowl-y type things. But it's, for me, at the end of the day, you put it on your back, you put the mask on your face, you turn air on, you breathe air from it, and it works as a set. So I think probably look towards Draeger and MSA in the future as a service, maybe. But it does the job. It's all right.
Well, London getting the MSA was a massive, big sales and onboarding. I know they're going through that distribution process now.
MSA make a quick attachment face piece. Have you seen them before? The French and the Swedish have it as well. I'll show you it, Pete. But basically, on the MSA headpieces, where even on the old style ones, we used to have your whole little push down for your goggles in that and your visor. There's little clippy bits on the side of it, and that's designed for the MSA face piece to literally clip in and you go. There's no spider harness, anything like that. So basically,
Oh yes, I have seen
rapid.
them.
It's like the fastest thing possible.
Yes.
Get your brief, great. Clip, go. It's fantastic. I would love to have that as a set. Our issue is that 100% guarantee. We can't have that. Or won't be able to have that because what happens if you go with a confined space or a collapsed structure and you've got to take your helmet off to fit through a gap? You can't do that with that face piece because it's the face piece is obviously attached to the helmet, so you can't take your helmet off to get to that small gap.
It's the G1 full face mask. Yeah, I'm just looking at it now. The MSA G1 is a full face mask designed, used with an M1 self-contained breathing apparatus. Extremely compact, lightweight mask. Blah 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 blah. Yeah, you just clip them straight over, and then away you go.
Well.
They're
so like,
really nice.
I follow the Danish as well, and they literally wear their flash hoods ready, and they have like it kind of does it at the front. They have a flash hood where like the French just have a normal flash hood, so they put the flash hood on and then clip in, and the Danish have like one where they kind of like our chin straps, our neck piece on our tunics. They basically like seal themselves up. If that makes sense, but it's so much quicker. And so when they deploy it, because they don't have a backhoe, they can just turn up and just clip, off you go, instant go. Yeah,
that's nice. Again, it's reliant on they wear their masks over the top of their flashes as well, don't they? I think a lot of services do that, and I know the Americans do it as well, which makes a lot of sense for me in ways because the edge of that flash hood is when we're talking about the neck being the second most absorbent area for contaminants, and everything that's hitting you in the face is being caught around the edge, on your flash hood, on your fire hood, and that's the bit that then people pull straight over, stick around their necks. Whereas I feel like when you're just having that on and you stick your face mask straight over the top of it, and I think that's why is it the French or the French or the Swedish, or maybe both, allow for a lot of facial hair as well because. They're like, well, this whole creating a seal bollocks is ridiculous because it's positive pressure anyway.
Look, a lot of the French, they kind of have more mustaches than the Spaniards and Portuguese in that. But yeah, the things with flash hoods is that you can buy particular blocking flash hoods now. They're like 99% effective, like Stead Airs. I've got some for when I instruct, and they're great. You come away, you don't smell a smoke. And like you said, there's like some stat for every degree increase in your surface temperature, your absorption rate increases by like 400%. So your neck, that's why Hodgkin's and non-Hodgkin lymphoma is quite common in firefighters because of where your lymph nodes are in your throat anyway, or on your neck, and that's getting smashed by whatever other crap's coming at you. And likewise, they say the weak points are like your neck, your cuffs, and then your zipper sections. Because typically, like, I don't know about yours, but the kit we have is just Velcro and a button push on our trousers, whereas they should be zipped.
Yeah.
They should be zipped and double layered, which is how it should be.
So the particular fire hoods, is there a particular brand that you recommend? Because I know Gore-Tex do one. There's a Buff neckwear that do one.
Mine's Cobra, I think. I bought it from. It's a company. It's an American company, but the British one or the European's based out of Lancashire. I bought it from Fire Ladders UK. I can't think of the brand now. It's called Cobra. But I looked at like.
Loads of them do one. I think Flame Pro have got one. MSA look like they've got one as well now. Cool. But I imagine there's a bit of an increase in cost for them, and I think it'll be a pushback for a lot of services.
It's like 5 times the cost. But the thing is with it is like, we talk about prevention. So like, obviously a large part of our job is going out, fitting smoke alarms, preventing. But we don't prevent illness in firefighters very well at all. Yes, the cost implications like 5 times as much. However, long-term effects, if a firefighter gets cancer, the implication of that on the service is that you're going to pay someone's sickness, and it's a work-based injury. So it's not going to be 6 months. It could be a year, 2 years, 3 years. Then the implication of that on the NHS, which is, in terms of local governance, is more expensive. And then the most obvious moral thing is that person's ill, they're sick, they're potentially shortening their lifespan. There's things we could have done in place to prevent that from happening. We might not have, we might not get rid of it completely, but right, here's a particularly blocking flash hood, here's a particularly blocking pair of pants, top, whatever, fill in the blank. That's minimising their risk. And we do risk assessments for everything, but that's the one area because of cost. And I get it, I can understand it, but that is a really easy thing that we can resolve, we can fix, and we're not. I don't know if any fire service does that. I know our instructors, they were giving some freebies for like particulate blocking flash hoods and that, but then they're freebies.
Yeah, that's the problem, is it? I might have a chat with a couple of them, see if we can start doing some giveaways and start trying to encourage people to start wearing them. Because
shouldn't be having to buy.
There's a huge argument.
Shouldn't be having to buy our own PPE. So should
no,
like top level PPE.
No, we should.
Like I said, my mate in Sweden, they've got local buying power, and if there's something better out there, each firefighter's got up to like $1,000, and they can just like go out and buy it, write an equipment note for it, and a risk assessment, and then they can trial it, and if it's any good, the service will buy it.
Yeah.
So they've done that. They've got particulate blocking flash hoods. And my old man was 22 years in the job. He died at 42 of cancer. Yeah. And you do wonder.
Yeah.
I can remember him coming home stinking of smoke. Because it was a bit of an honour badge back in the day. There was still smoke eating as well, even in the 90s. Some people, when I joined, they weren't wearing BA on car fires. And like you just think, you wonder how different that outcome could have been if they were already on this and looking after welfare and stuff like that. And like we've got a duty to do it to people.
Yeah.
We've got a duty to the people that we work with. But my guys get a bit, because with car fires and that, I want them to put them out from distance, almost like a controlled burn. Because like, what the hell are we saving? Have you ever put out a car fire where the vehicle's like been able to go back on the road? I haven't. So why are we sticking our heads in the footwell with jetting it and stuff like that, like getting all contaminated? Then we've got to go back off the run as well.
Yeah.
Because we've got no spare PPE. Like, what are we doing? And I always I'd say about the old man, I was like, he was 42 years old, 2 years older than I am now, and he died of cancer. Like that as well. And you think it's just, it's not worth the risk, and we need to look after firefighters better.
Yeah. We definitely
go on my soapbox. Preaching.
It's true.
No, mate. I think you're totally right.
You'd probably be worth knowing, Pete, for your instructing stuff. A company called Enduro. They make different garments, like they make our RTC gloves, but they're the first company to go to market with a particulate blocking tracksuit, basically, like your Bragas. It's that, but better.
Oh yeah. Did we see them at the emergency service?
I spoke to them there. I took their contact number, but mate, it's spenny. It's expensive, but the thing is with it is, I was talking to Zoe about it, and Zoe was like, "You're buying it," because I think it's like their lowest range things, like maybe 300, 400 quid, and their kind of package is like you get the tracksuit, which is 99% particulate blocking. There's a flash hood. There's like little gloves and little booties, so you're pretty much completely sealed in particulate blocking kit. And I think it's one of them things where every instructor should be thinking about buying that. As a firefighter as well, like it'd be great, but the reality of it is that we don't really have time to get changed into something like that. But if you know you are going to be exposed to that, if you're instructing and you didn't see a PTI or whatever, you're around carbonaceous burns, it's almost, in my mind, it should be a given that you're going to get that to protect you, because it's all being well. Doing 30 years, like so many firefighters in my previous brigade, they get to like 30 years, retire, and then a year later they've got a terminal illness. And so you've survived 30 years to live a year with your pension. And it's like that's kind of the upfront cost. And like Ben said, we shouldn't be having to pay for ourselves. However, we're in a time and a place where like it's not an affordable thing for most services to do. And that's where I'm kind of a little bit like even fire gloves. Like you can get machine washable fire gloves. The cheaper than typically what we buy from our contracted services. We don't buy them because we're not allowed to wear our own PPE. And rightly so. You've got to have some quality control. However, it reaches a point where it's like, well, if I'm going to get sick, I'm going to get ill, no one's really looking after me then.
Yeah.
Part of the NHS. So
Yeah.
I have a very different. I'm like with Benz's mate's opinion. If you can go out there and find it and know it's safe, and you've got the EN numbers and it's actual fire kit, then why not?
It is a frustrating, difficult conversation to have with your stores, and I have this a lot of the time because I get sent a load of stuff through the podcast as torches and fire gloves and special Gucci boots and all this sort of crap, and barely ever allowed to wear any of it in service, and I often get pulled up by my station managers when I show up in the training department wearing something that shouldn't be. And again, it's nothing to show off, and you're trying to encourage people and you try and get other samples for other people, but unless you're going to get the service on board with it, it does start to become elitist. But you have to walk that fine line between that healthy selfishness of, look, you've got to look after number one. Yeah. You've got to look after yourself first and foremost. And then what we're doing now, you're trying to share that information, you're trying to encourage other people, but you've got to step up and make a plan for yourself, really. But no, Enduro Protect is the company. I'm just looking at it again now. Yeah, 99%, and they've got the full base layer protection. It's still effective, 99% effective even after 100 washes. Comes to the EN ISO 14116, so it adheres to everything. They've got the flash hood, they've got the booties, they've got the gloves. Super Gucci stuff. I'll make a commitment now that I'm going to reach out to them, and we should have them on for a podcast because that'd be a good conversation. Look, guys, I want to be super respectful of your time because we've been talking for nearly 2 hours now, and I know my dogs and my kids need to get out of their cages because I lock them away as often as possible because they just annoy me. But no, we're going to get them out there. But thanks so much for taking us in so many different directions today and humouring my stupid questions. My hope is it acts as a bit of an insight for people that are hungrier, people that are a little bit more interested in going to do challenges like you guys and girls have. Massive congratulations on kicking ass and taking names and smashing it. Thank you for being open enough to come on here and have a kind of open discussion about all of it, and I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Cheers, Pete.
Cheers, Pete.
The Firefighters podcast was created to recognize, acknowledge, inspire, and hopefully even motivate these incredible individuals who have chosen to be part of the first responder community. Our driving purpose is to create a legacy resource for the current and future generations of firefighters and first responders. We get some incredible feedback from listeners and guests, and as the podcast grows, our desire to create longevity and sustainability means we are asking for the support of our listeners. If you want to support the podcast, if you want to get discounts to our merchandise, hoodies, clothing, coins, patches, tallies, and also access to all of the incredible documents that get shared with us from our podcast guests and sector leaders, then please head over to our Patreon page, and for just £3 a month, you can support the future of the podcast. Please finally hit that follow, subscribe, or rate button on the platform you're listening, and wherever you are in the world, please support your emergency services responders, and thank you for listening.